What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I'm your host, Josh Harris. If you're wondering where I am, I got kidnapped. I am in the Stochastic basement at their headquarters in Chicago. There's bad glare down here. I've already written a strongly worded letter, but they have not decided to fix it. But joining me to break down this 8-game slate, as always, Slim Cliffy in his, is that Columbia?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's always got the good winter gear. I'm dressed like a fool. What's going on?
Not a whole lot. It's starting to finally feel like winter. At least, Northeast United States where I am, all that stuff. Interesting slate last night. Toronto, their top guys scored all 5 goals. Their top power play unit scored all 5 goals. I mean, the guys on the power play unit, they didn't get 5 power play goals. They had 5 assists to go with it. Pretty big night from those guys. Josh Stack was something we talked about yesterday on the show. Unfortunately, I didn't go through with it. I went with our Columbus Blue Jackets. They did get a goal, but not enough, obviously. We did get a winner in the Discord. Should shout out Chris Negus. Sorry. Meant to bring up Chris Negus' screenshot from last night. There it is. Took down first place in the $4, I think it was the 20 max. Maybe it might have been a 15 max for shorter slate. I don't know. Took down first place. He had said he was going through a little bit of a rough patch for DFS wise. So nice for him to hit that. Hopefully we can get some more winners here tonight. 8 games on the board. One massively chalky spot that we're going to get to a little bit later. If you don't want to play the chalk, then you don't have to worry about ownership anywhere else. So it's kind of an interesting slate in that sense.
Yeah. And Jake is running a new update for us now. So thank you for that. Probably skip mentioning the ownership on the first game, which is Tampa and Montreal. There isn't a ton there, but maybe on the rerun, they will be. If it does change drastically, I will point it out. I do have to pick up my medium fella from school. So, we don't have to rush, but we do have to get this done by 3:00. So let's get into this. Before we do, just want to say thank you for hanging out with us, despite me being in the basement. They don't let me out much, but they do provide snacks. So that's all I need. I need internet and snacks. But if you do want to go premium, you just go through the link in the chat, and there is a promo code that will now get you 20% off. I think it's BINK, because we had another Millie Maker win in NFL from a subscriber over the weekend. So if you use promo code BINK, they'll get you 20% off a single sport membership. If you want to do some combo meal, you can use promo code Stochastic 15. That'll get you 15% off, like a Avatar all access type deal. So check that out. But let's get into this slate. I got a nice glare on my phone. Good thing I put away. I'm going to stop there. Tampa Bay Lightning with a 3.4 total heading into Montreal. The Canadiens have a 3 total. Tampa played last night. They obviously lost to the Leafs. They saved Andrei Vasilevsky for the mighty Habs. That's such a shot at Toronto, and I love it that they started Jonas Johansson against the Leafs, and they're starting Andrei Vasilevsky against the Habs. We don't have confirmation on Tampa Bay's lines. In game last night, they moved Kucherov to the Cirelli-Hagel line, and they moved Paul to Gensel and Point. That's kind of a big deal, especially when trying to break down line matching here, because I would imagine Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky are going to go out against whomever the line Kucherov is on, right?
They've not really been using the Suzuki line in a shutdown matchup for a few games now. They've been using Jake Evans a lot more.
Jacob Evans, Joel Armia, even with Owen Beck?
I mean, maybe not, but they'll probably just use Christian Dvorak, honestly.
True. So maybe matchups aren't that big of a deal, especially if Kucherov is with Hagel Cirelli, because then, that Suzuki line will avoid that Hagel-Cirelli pairing. Now, with Kucherov, they aren't as good defensively, obviously. So, boom, they kidnapped me. I'm in the stochastic basement, so relax. What was I saying? Hagel-Cirelli with Kucherov is still really, really good offensively. Not as great defensively as, say, Hagel-Cirelli geeky, right? But then you have you avoid the Hagel-Cirelli altogether, and you'll have something like Point, Gensel, Paul, which doesn't strike me as a very good defensive line. So I don't have issue going to Montreal 1 here, and if that's the case. Now, again, this has been a common theme of teams lately. If I'm going to stack Montreal, I have a hard time doing it without Patrick Laine, and I do not want to full stack Montreal too. I would add in Laine to a Montreal 1 stack. I would take off Slafkovsky, add in Laine, take off Caulfield and add in Laine. I don't think I'd take off Suzuki and add in Laine, but I would take off Caulfield or Slafkovsky and add in Laine, or just straight up one off Laine, add in a Hudson, something like that. So I think Montreal 1 is fine. I'd be interested in getting Laine into my lineup. Now, on the Tampa side, we do have to see what the lines are, because if it is Kucherov, Hagel, Cirelli, I believe it's like $22,800, which is $3,100 cheaper than a Kucherov Point Gensel line. They would be fully correlated. Montreal takes a ton of penalties. Yes, they've improved defensively, and yes, their penalty kill has gotten better, but the volume of penalties is still a concern, and you give this Tampa power play 4 or 5 opportunities, they're more than likely going to score. So, yes, I would have interest in a Kucherov, Cirelli, Hagel line. We'll have to wait and see what they present in warmups. Luckily, this is one of the first games that locks, so maybe you'll get a low-owned combo if that is the case. But until then, it's kind of hard what to pinpoint with Tampa, because if it's Kucherov, Point, Gensel at 26,000, I wouldn't have a ton of interest. So we'll have to see where Kucherov is, and that kind of would gauge my interest on Tampa here tonight, despite them being back-to-back on the road.
Yeah, like you said, we'll just have to wait to see what it looks like in warm-up. The usual spiel applies to Tampa Bay when they have all the guys on the top line, and the top line's between 26 and 27,000. No interest in paying all the way up for that. If they do break them up, it would be Kucherov, Hagel, Cirelli that I would be interested in. It wouldn't be Point, Gensel, and Paul. Like, Braden Point has 33 shots on goal in his last 15 games. On yesterday's show, we were talking about how Jake Gensel, after a brief little burst there a month or so ago, hasn't really been shooting a lot, and he had 1 shot on goal last night. Nick Paul's not a shooter per se. Like, I don't want to pay over $20K for a line with 3 guys that just don't really shoot the puck, even if they're efficient when they shoot it. I would go to Kucherov, Hagel, and Cirelli. They're probably going to be the 3 most used forwards the team has. They do have a pretty good sample this season, 145 minutes together, 3.6 expected goals, 3.7 actual goals per 60 minutes. Kucherov's at 3.5 shots per game over his last 15 games. Obviously, Brandon Hagel's been shooting a little bit. Anthony Cirelli's been shooting more than he has last year. 22,800 is a lot more reasonable. And as you mentioned, because Kucherov plays both halves of the power play, he'd be fully correlated with them on one of the power play units. And Montreal still leading the league in penalties this season, still leading the league in penalties over the last 5 weeks. Tampa Bay could get quite a few power play opportunities here tonight. So even if Montreal's penalty kill is average, which is better than it was earlier in the season or last year, it's still bad. So it's still bad because they take so many penalties. So I would have a lot of interest in Kucherov, Hagel, Cirelli. If that's not a line at warm-up, I really don't have a lot of interest in Tampa Bay other than maybe some one-offs. On the Montreal side, the thing about Tampa Bay is that they do have a pretty good penalty kill. We mentioned it yesterday on the show. I think Toronto had 1 power play goal last night. Tampa Bay, they're top 10 by penalty kill percentage. On the season, they don't take a ton of penalties. They're top 10 over the last 5 weeks, and they don't take a ton of penalties. So not sure Montreal's power play will get there. That's why I don't mind just even strength stacking the top line. Caulfield, Suzuki, Slafkovsky, since they got reunited on December 14th, so it's been about 5 weeks. 3.5 expected goals, 4.5 actual goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. They're, Suzuki and Caulfield, as long as Heineman's out or somebody's out, they're going to get decent minutes. Slafkovsky, not so much. 16,800 for a perfectly correlated line that's playing extremely well at 5-on-5. I don't mind Montreal 1 here, especially for 20 maxing or 150 especially. But it is a Tampa Bay side I like best, assuming Hagel, Cirelli, and Kucherov are together.
Ottawa Senators with a 2.6 total. Heading into New York, the Rangers have a 3 total. Ottawa going Tkachuk, Batherson, Norris, Stützle, Giroux, Gaudette, Pinto, Greig, Cousins. Rangers going Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere, Zibanejad, Smith, Cooley, Kreider, Hedel, Kaliev. We did get an update. Thank you, Jake. This game is a 5.5 total, and I don't have a ton of interest. Like, the Ottawa side's fine, but like Norris, Batherson, Tkachuk haven't been great together this season. I know the Rangers aren't very good defensively, but Miller and Borgen go out against top comp, and they've been decent. It is Igor in net. This line, doesn't create a ton. Their shooting percentage isn't very high. They are fully correlated, and they do have a top 2 stack over 11%. So in that sense, they're fine to take a stab in MME. I don't know if I'd get there in single entry. 2.6 road total, not over 19,000. Not sure that interests me too much. Stützle, Drew, Gaudette at 12,900 are right. Like, they're not creating a ton, but they're scoring. They're running a little bit hot, but like the middle 6 of the Rangers is just, not ideal at the moment. So if you do need a filler at 12.9, you can throw them in a basket with other lines in that area that you can use in MME, to fit the expensive stuff here tonight. Don't have a ton of interest in Pinto, Greig, Cousins. Like, if you want to use a one-off Pinto, a one-off Greig just because they're so cheap, sure, but I don't have a ton of interest there. Now, on the Rangers side, I don't have a ton of interest in Zibanejad, Smith, Cooley. They're 11,700. I get it. But they are coming in over-owned at 5.2%, and they don't play a ton of minutes. They have been decent, but they're shooting like 2% maybe. So, Mika Zibanejad's had shooting percentage issues for multiple seasons now. Riley Smith's not a high-quality finisher. Neither is Cooley. So at that ownership, I'm going to take a pass there. The only line of interest for me on the Rangers side would be Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere, but they're getting expensive. They were like 17.5 even last week. Now they're up to 19,500. They are fully correlated, so that's fine. But Ottawa has generally been decent defensively. Manalainen has been decent in net. They only have a 3 total. Like, if I had to play one line from this game, it would be Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere over Tkachuk, Batherson, Norris. But I just don't think I'm going to be prioritizing this game in single entry.
So the only line from Ottawa that I really have interest in would be Tkachuk, Batherson, and Norris. The main reason for that is that the Rangers do take a lot of penalties. On the season, 3rd most times shorthanded per game in the league over the last 5 weeks. The 3rd most times shorthanded per game in the league. They generally have had a decent penalty kill, good penalty kill even. But if Ottawa does get 3 or 4, maybe even 5 power plays here tonight, I would want a perfectly correlated top line in my lineup. At 19,100, it's kind of tough for me to get there. Like, I think they are one of the pivots you can go do if you don't want to play chalk Nashville. We'll get to them in a second. But Ottawa 1's definitely not a priority for me. It would be the one line that I would have interested on the Ottawa side. For the Rangers, like, you mentioned that they have gotten more expensive, and they have. Like, remember, it was only a few games ago when the Rangers were in Utah. It was actually last Thursday. I think they were like 17,400 or something like that and they had a pretty good game. They've gone up $2,000 since then. And the thing is Lafreniere lost his top power play role. So they're getting more expensive with less power play correlation, and Lafreniere's ice time has gone down. So like, I think the time to play the Rangers top line, generally speaking, was last week or the week before. Now, with the price going up, with less power play correlation, with less ice time for Lafreniere, and like the Sens have been a good defensive team, right? Like the big issue at times, earlier in the season was games when Allmark started rough, and then there were games where Anton Forsberg wasn't playing well, but Levi Merilainen, you mentioned, has been really, really good. Over the last 25 games, Ottawa has the 8th lowest expected goals against per 60 in the league at 5-on-5 and the 7th lowest actual goals against. Now, they do take a fair number of penalties as well. Maybe that's where the Rangers can catch some. So I don't mind Rangers 1 here. Going to be honest, I just don't have a ton of interest in this game. It's 2.5 total. Top lines are a nice pivot away from chalk Nashville, but for me, I think it would be more about the cheaper guys. Like if you want to dig all the way down, like if you are paying for expensive Tampa Bay or something like that, like a Hedl Kaliev, like 2-man or something, that line has been pretty, Hedl and Kaliev have been pretty good since they were put together. If you want to do like Hedl and Kreider, it's under $8K for that 2-man, and Kreider got his top power play roll back, so you can do that. I think it would honestly be the cheap Rangers guys that I'd have more interest in this game, but I just don't have a ton of interest, generally speaking.
Same. Detroit Red Wings with a 2.7 total heading into Philadelphia. The Flyers have a 3.3. This game opened at a 5.5, I believe, and it's gone up during the day. We don't have confirmation on Detroit lines, which is kind of annoying. Not really. I mean, unless they like load the top line, I don't have a ton of interest in their 5-on-5 lines. The Flyers, as far as we know, are going Konechny, Tippett, Frost, Forster, Cates, Brink, Mitchkov, Couturier, Farabee. This Flyers top line, 9.6% top 2 stack, 14.6% projected ownership. It's a lot of ownership here on the Flyers. And like I don't normally like stacking the Flyers as it is because of Torts, but you're going to give them a line with pushing 15% ownership on an 8-game slate. It's a good power play matchup, but their power play sucks. So, and at 5-on-5, they're not creating a bunch. They're scoring a bunch, but they're running hot right now. So at that ownership in single entry, I'm probably going to take a pass at full stacking. If you want a one-off Konechny, one-off Tippett, that kind of jazz is fine with me. But in terms of a full stack, I think I'm going to pass. In MME, obviously, you're going to have to make a decision. If I was making 20 to 150 tonight, I think I would come in under. But that's just me. The line that interests me on the Flyer side, be Forrester, Cates, Brink at 9,500. They've been really good this season, 245 minutes. Torts doesn't mess with the line. 3 expected goals, 3.7 actual. They're fully correlated on whatever the second unit is. They both suck, so it doesn't really matter, but at least the power play time's there. For their price, they play a decent amount of minutes. They're coming in at 3.6% projected ownership, and they fit with everybody. So I'm going to play a full line on the Flyers to be Forrester, Cates, Brink. Obviously, the power play guys are in the best spot, the top power play guys. I just don't trust Torts. I don't trust that power play, so I'd be more likely to one-off or 2-man. On the wing side, without knowing lines, I don't, one, that's annoying, but 2, it's a good power play matchup. So I would just concentrate on the power play guys. I'd do something like Larkin, Raymond, DeBrincat, Larkin, Raymond, Kane, DeBrincat, Kane, Cedar. You know what I mean? I would do some sort of 3, 4, 5. Like you could full power play stack, like they have been running hot. I'd probably keep it to 3 or 4-man, but I would concentrate on the power play guys.
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting matchup. The Flyers penalty kill very, very recently, like the last 10 games or so, has gotten better. Fewer shot attempts against, fewer shots against, fewer goals against than earlier in the year. For the first 35 plus games of the season, the penalty kill was kind of bad. And if you have a kind of bad penalty kill against this Detroit power play can absolutely just rip you apart. I mean, we saw them do it to Florida, and Florida has had a better penalty kill than the Flyers have. That would be my interest in Detroit, is that if the last 9-10 games of Philly's penalty killing is just kind of an aberration, and they're actually still just not very good on the PK, then this would be a pretty good spot for the top Detroit guys, especially considering where there's no ownership on them. Larkin and Raymond with Casper, assuming that's the top line, under 1%. DeBrincat, Kane, Kopp, assuming that's the top line, 1.5%. If you look at individual player ownership here tonight, their highest projected ownership is Moritz Seider at 4.5%. Alex Lyon just over 2%. Not a single forward at 2% ownership or higher against a team whose penalty kill this season has been legitimately bad. At best, you could say that they're below average. So it's one of those situations where if I was 20 maxing tonight, I would probably have one Detroit lineup with at least 3 or 4, at least 3 of their top power play forwards, if not all 4 of them. Because if the bad Flyers penalty kill shows up, this Detroit power play should be able to fill the net. If the good penalty kill shows up, that makes it a little bit tougher, because the Flyers have been getting a lot better at 5-on-5 defensively since basically the month of October, and over the last 2 months, they've been pretty good defensively. It's only when the goaltending lets them down that they look bad. So I'm not targeting Detroit specifically for single entry here tonight, but if I'm playing a bunch of lineups, I'm at least considering their top power play guys, because looking at the season as a whole, this is a pretty good power play matchup for Detroit. On the Flyers side, I do agree with you that Brink line makes a nice filler where they're perfectly correlated. They've been getting some decent minutes. Like at the low end, Brink will get 15, Cates and Forster like between 16 and 18, like that. Considering, perfectly correlated minutes for a line that's under 10K in what is a good power play matchup. Like, yes, the Flyers power play is generally bad. Even when it's good, it's below average. The Red Wings penalty kill, whether under their old coach or under their new coach, has been bad, flat out bad. Second lowest penalty kill percentage on the season. Over the last 5 weeks, second lowest penalty kill percentage. If the Flyers are ever going to get a decent power play matchup, this is one of them. So I do agree that Forster, Cates, Brink makes sense if you do need a super cheap filler, but that's why I also have interest in Konechny, Tippett, and Frost. Is that power play, at least since Jamie Drysdale returned from injury, has gotten better. They're still not good. Better and good are not the same things. It has gotten better. So I do think even at 15% ownership, I think they're fine to play. I'd be more interested in like a Konechny one-off, maybe a Konechny Tippett 2-man, than I would be just flat out full stacking them. But I do have some interest in the Flyer side here tonight. I think there are playable players up and down that lineup.
Yeah. Just the Torts X factor on an 8-game slate that you just make you go, in your head. But, that's always there. San Jose Sharks with a 2.3 total heading into Nashville. The Predators have a 3.7. Sharks played yesterday, and they started Askarov, so it's going to be Georgiev in net. We won't get an update on Toffoli until warm-ups, I don't think. I know he didn't play yesterday. Regardless, they went to a 5-forward power play yesterday. Wenberg, Celebrini, Eklund, Granlund, Zetterlund. Why? I don't know. With the uncertainty around them, like I would have a little bit of interest if Toffoli is back, and you'll get them at a nice, low-owned combo. If he's not, like, I know Will Smith had a really good game yesterday playing with Granlund and Zetterlund, but like 2.3 back-to-back on the road, one of the worst teams in the league. It's just hard for me to get there. If Toffoli is back, the only line I'd have interest in is Celebrini, Eklund, Toffoli. And, that would be more of an MME type deal. The big issue here is what to do with Nashville, because Forsberg, Marchessault, Stamkos are 18,900. They 32.4% top 2 stack and 37.2% projected ownership. I think that's the highest projected owned line we've had on the season on a slate, 5 games or more. Excuse me. And the issue is twofold here because the Sharks are atrocious at 5-on-5 and the penalty kill, and this line has started scoring more. They're still not great 5-on-5, but like the Sharks are pathetic at 5-on-5. They have an atrocious penalty kill. It's Georgiev and net, not Askarov. The problem is the ownership, and there's a couple of things maybe I would do to negate some of that ownership. One, you just full power play stack. You go Forsberg, Marchessault, Stamkos, O'Reilly, Yossi. Even if all 5 of those guys are 25 to 30, even higher percent, the amount of full power play stacks in your GPPs will not be 30-something percent. 2, you can do some sort of broken power play stack, like Forsberg, O'Reilly, Yossi, Forsberg, Stamkos, O'Reilly, Yossi, something like that. I don't know if I would just full stack Nashville 1 and be like, okay, let's get my other stack in there. I think I would find a way to get different in that game to negate some of that ownership, especially in large field tournaments. Now, in single entry, like, there's so many ways to get different just by the way you build, just by your defenseman. You know what I mean? In large field tournaments, I don't think I would just straight up stack Nashville 1 and call it a day. I'd bring along O'Reilly. I'd bring along Yossi. I'd bring along both. I'd have a broken power play stack, something like that. In, single entry, it's not ideal to straight up just stack Nashville 1, but there's so many ways to get different in one lineup that it's probably okay. I hate Nashville chalk, but like this is almost undeniable how good of a spot this is, and Forsberg has been filling the net. So I'm in on Nashville. I'm going to find a way to get different if I play them. I'm not going to just straight up stack Nashville 1 and call it a day. I'll find a way to get different, and I'll try to, have a different build or something.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Nashville side. Like, I wouldn't just play the top line. I would probably power play stack. I mean, the reason isn't just only to get different. There are other reasons to include Ryan O'Reilly in that stack besides just the power play and trying to be a little bit more unique. Like, listen, man, that line with Vinny Hinostroza has been good. You know what I mean? Hinostroza is a guy, definitely not like a DFS darling or anything like that, but he's a guy that's generally been at least a neutral player whenever he's gotten a chance in the NHL over the last 6 or 7 years, which hasn't been a whole lot. 70 minutes together for that Hinostroza, Nyquist, O'Reilly line, 64 shot attempts, 2.9 expected goals, 2.6 actual goals per 60 minutes. That's not bad, especially considering that they're usually tasked with the shutdown minutes, which is kind of funny. They call it Vinny Hinostroza from the AHL and then put him on a shutdown line, but it's working. So O'Reilly's been playing like 19 minutes a game of late, give or take. So 19 minutes a game with top power play time on a line that's been good at 5-on-5 in a very good 5-on-5 matchup. Like, that'd be another reason to include Riley in that top line stack. Add Yossi on the blue line and be on your way. Like the Nashville penalty or the San Jose penalty kill, definitely not been that good this season, generally speaking. Has gotten worse as the year's gone on. The last 5 weeks, tied for the third worst, penalty kill percentage in the league. Only the Blues and Red Wings have been worse. This Nashville power play has generally been very good this season, so I do like the idea of a power play stack on the Nashville side. On the San Jose side, listen, like, this is a road back-to-back. I get that. They're facing UC Saros, who, when he's going, he's pretty good. So there is that going for it. But Celebrini, Wenberg, on that second line, Celebrini, Wenberg, and Eklund. That's a perfectly correlated line on the power play, assuming Toffoli is out tonight. I mean, even if Toffoli's back, Toffoli might just take Wenberg's spot, right? So that's a perfectly correlated line on the power play that is priced at $13K, and all the guys are going to skate like at the low end 17 minutes, at the high end over 20 here tonight, coming in with under 4% ownership on an 8-game slate. I'm not running out to play San Jose tonight in a single entry. I do think there is reason to play them. Like a perfectly correlated line at $13K that is going to get heavy minutes. At least 2 out of the 3 guys are probably going to get heavy minutes. Is never a bad idea, I don't think. Regardless of matchup, regardless of back-to-back, regardless of whatever. Just because all they need to do is get lucky like 3 or 4 times a year, and that line is in business for DFS, from a DFS perspective. So if I'm playing a bunch of lineups here tonight, that Celebrini, Eklund, Wenberg line is one that I'm at least considering. Celebrini and Eklund, 2.5 expected goals, 2.6 actual goals, and 135 minutes together with any winger but Toffoli. So at least like a little bit above league average at 5-on-5. So at worst, you'll say this is a league average 5-on-5 line that is perfectly correlated on the power play with heavy minutes at $13K. I think that's at least worth considering. I'm not going to play them in a single entry, but if I was playing 20 max or something, they would at least be considered as a filler. But yeah, obviously this is a Nashville 1/Nashville power play game.
Yep, agreed. Carolina Hurricanes with a 2.7 total heading into Dallas. The Stars have a 2.9 total. Looks like Rope Hintz is back in the lineup. He is not on the top power play, and we don't have confirmation on lines. However, I would imagine they just go back to Hintz, Robertson, Dadonov, Johnston, Ben, Duchesne. If that is the case, Johnston, Ben, Duchesne would be fully correlated on the top power play unit. Now, it's not a good power play spot. Carolina has an elite penalty kill, but they are back-to-back on the road. It is Pyotr Kochetkov in net. You don't necessarily like it's just a bonus that they're fully correlated. I'm not stacking Dallas for their, the power play here tonight. But that Johnston, Ben, Duchesne line has been very, very good this season, and they'll probably get, that Netches, Kotkaniemi, Robinson line, or if it's, Drury, whoever, they've been flip-flopping, but either way, like that line hasn't been great defensively. I don't mind Johnston, Ben, Duchesne if that is the line. They are 18K, so they are coming up in price, but they're half of their top 2 stack percentage in terms of ownership. Carolina hasn't been a very good defensive team for probably 6 weeks now. They've been struggling a little bit in net. The only thing that they still have going for them is the penalty kill, so I would be in on Johnston, Ben, Duchesne. Robertson, Hintz, Dadonov is fine. Robertson has been getting hot, but it has been a lot on the power play, and this isn't the best power play matchup, so I would defer to Johnston, Ben, Duchesne. On the Carolina side, I really do not have a ton of interest. It's a tough matchup going into Dallas. They're back-to-back on the road. These line combinations aren't great. If anything in MME, I would get to some Aho, Svechnikov, Blake at 14,900. They're a little bit more expensive than a filler. If you need something cheaper, like Jarvis, Stahl, Martinook they've been really good, so that's fine. But I'm not running out to play Carolina here tonight. They're not my focus.
You can make an argument these are the 2 best penalty killing teams in the league. I don't think it would honestly be even that hard of an argument to make. They are first and second by penalty kill percentage in the NHL this season. They're first and fifth over the last 5 weeks. Dallas first, Carolina fifth. Like this is the worst power play matchup on both sides that exist in the league. So I'm not like, I don't, as far as like power play correlation, all that goes, like I don't really care. Like if they get one goal, if either team gets one power play goal, it'll be a little bit fortunate. So I'm not super concerned about power play correlation for either side. I would probably go to Robertson, Hintz, Dadonov in that case, just because I don't care about the power play correlation. They're a lot cheaper. Jason Robertson, like you mentioned, his little hot streak. He has 27 points in his last 20 games, averaging 3 shots per game. So it's not like this is a case we mentioned too with Teravainen the other day, where Teravainen had a 15-game hot streak where he had more points than shots on goal. Robertson is getting very, very involved offensively. That line with Dadonov, like, it has been good. 3.1 expected goals, 3.5 actual goals per 60 minutes, shooting a little over 12%, which is a bit high, but it's not extreme or anything like that. Where they're priced as a mid-price stack, they're one of those mid-price stacks I would consider. I don't have anything against playing Johnston, Ben Duchesne. They are correlated on the power play. If the power play gets there, one of them is probably going to be involved, if not more of them. But Johnston, Hinson, Dadonov, considering it's $2,300 cheaper, and I'm not worried about power play correlation is where I'm looking. On the Carolina side, like, it would probably be going back to Jarvis, Stahl, Martinook. Stahl, Martinook getting 15 to 16 minutes, give or take. Jarvis up around 20. Jarvis over 2.5 shots per game in his last 20 games. Jordan Stahl just can't stop scoring, I guess, for some reason. That line, 3.2 expected goals, 3 actual goals per 60 minutes. Probably going to see like the depth defenseman, especially from the Dallas side, which I think is pretty important. That would probably be the line I would go. I don't have a lot of interest in Carolina like you, and I'm going to be honest, I don't have a lot of interest in Dallas. Like, this is one of those games where I'm not there. Neither side is necessarily a priority for me.
Yeah, I agree. Let's get to an interesting game here. Washington Capitals with a 2.8 total. Heading into Edmonton, the Oilers have a 3.1. Connor McDavid starting his 3-game suspension. I mean, both things, I've seen Oilers fans and beats losing their mind about the suspension. Both things can be true. Garland should have been called a penalty for a penalty there. If you cross-check someone in the face, you should get suspended. Now, it doesn't help that Garland's 3'7" on skates, and the only place for that cross-check to go was his head. But if you cross-check someone in the head, you're going to get suspended, and he got suspended for 3 games. Now, according to an NHL.com article, not the most reliable source, this is their projected lineup. Draisaitl, Arvidsson, Podkolzin, Hyman, Nugent-Hopkins, Skinner, Brown, Henrique, Janmark. Now, on the Washington side, Ovechkin, Strome, McMichael, Wilson, Protas, Dubois. I think that will be the lineup. Like, maybe it's not Skinner, maybe it's someone else, but I don't think they're going to break up Draisaitl, Arvidsson, Podkolzin. That line has been very, very good, and they're coming in at 15.2% projected ownership. Now, I wonder who's going to take McDavid's spot on the power play. There are a bevy of options here. I don't know if you have a lean or...
Yeah, because McDavid missed a few games earlier in the season, right? All 3 games, they ran 3 forward, 2 defensemen. They just added Matthias Ekholm. So it was Ekholm, Bouchard on the blue line with Draisaitl, Nugent-Hopkins, and Hyman.
Well, lovely. 2 teams running 3F, 2D power play units here tonight. Like, I like Draisaitl, Arvidsson, Podkolzin. I don't like that they're 15% owned. Logan Thompson has been... Did you see that stat? In Logan Thompson's starts, the Capitals have accrued 44 of 50 points. That's almost not believable. That's how ridiculous he's been.
Yeah, I was writing about him somewhere else. They've won 21 of his 25 starts.
Just bonkers. I like Draisaitl, Arvidsson, Podkolzin. Don't think I can swallow that ownership in single entry. I would try to get a little bit different if you're interested in that line. I'd probably just go Draisaitl, Hyman, Nugent-Hopkins, and call it a day. Like, their power play should still be fine without McDavid. I do worry a little bit that Bouchard's going to be like, it's my time, baby, and just start bombing away. But that's probably how I would do it, because the Hyman, Nugent-Hopkins, Skinner line, if it is the line, coming in at 3.2% projected. So, like, Draisaitl is going to be really high owned. Hyman and Nugent-Hopkins won't. So I would do some sort of stack like that. Draisaitl, Hyman, Nugent-Hopkins, Draisaitl, Hyman, Bouchard, and call it a day. I don't have a ton of interest on the Washington side. Like, McDavid doesn't obviously it's a big loss offensively for McDavid. I don't know how that affects him defensively because he plays so many minutes, and those minutes are going to get reallocated throughout the lineup. So maybe they run a bit of a more balanced minutes schedule. I would assume like Draisaitl, Arvidsson, Podkolzin are going to play some pretty heavy minutes. Draisaitl obviously over 20. That line has been good. I just like, I'm kind of with Cliffy here. Like Washington has been sliding, and until they turn it around, I don't know if I really want to stack them. So I'm probably out on them. They have a 2.8 total. So if you want a one-off Ovechkin, do a Strome Ovechkin 2-man, do something with like Chikrin or Carlson, that's fine. But I don't have a ton of interest here tonight.
Yeah, it's not that I dislike the Podkolzin Arvidsson line. Here's the thing is that when McDavid was out, he missed 3 games late October, early November. The first game that he missed, Vasily Podkolzin played 13 minutes. The second game that he missed, Podkolzin played 16 minutes. And then the third game he missed, Podkolzin played 15 minutes. So 13, 15, and 16, still not a ton of ice time. This is a 15% owned line at home against Washington. The Washington Capitals have the lowest goals against per minute of any team in the league, lower than Winnipeg. Logan Thompson has been arguably the second best goalie in the NHL this season, and the Washington Capitals generally have had a very good penalty kill this year. Not Dallas, Carolina quality, but in the next tier down. And you're replacing Connor McDavid with Matthias Ekholm on the power play. And I'm supposed to play 15% Edmonton line. I'm just not buying it. Like, if this was about 29 other teams besides Washington, I would probably have interest in a 15% Leon Draisaitl, Vasily Podkolzin, Victor Arvidsson line. But you can make an argument this is the worst matchup in the NHL with the way that Logan Thompson has played this season. So would you rather play Draisaitl, Arvidsson, Podkolzin, where only one guy is on the top power play unit against the second best goalie in the NHL this season with a great penalty kill? Or would you rather play the Philadelphia top line at home against Detroit, who have had arguably the worst penalty kill in the NHL? One of them. You know what I mean? Like, that's just kind of the way that I look at it. So, like, I would rather play Philly. I would rather play Montreal. There are just other spots I would go. Now, all that said, I think playing Leon Draisaitl as a one-off is a pretty good idea here tonight. Like, he is, remember like 10 years ago when Crosby was missing a lot of time, and then Evgeny Malkin would kind of go nuclear whenever Crosby would be out?
Especially when Crosby had the mumps.
Yeah, like Leon Draisaitl kind of did that earlier this season. Like, they missed those 3 games. One game, Edmonton was shut out. The other 2 games, Draisaitl had 3 goals and 3 assists in those 2 games. He's still a great player. I have no issue with one-offing him. I do have a little bit of issue in full stacking. I don't think Jeff Skinner's going to be long on that Nugent Hopkins Hyman line. Like, that's one of those spots where I could see Corey Perry or Matthias Janmark or Adam Henrique or somebody moving up by like the early second period or something like that. So I think my favorite thing on the Edmonton side is just one-offing Draisaitl. But in this matchup, I don't have a ton of interest in Edmonton. My interest is more on the Washington side. My interest is in that Wilson, Protas, Dubois line. 135 minutes together this season for Wilson, Dubois, and Protas. 64 shot attempts, 3 expected goals, 4.4 actual goals per 60 minutes. Wilson nearly 3 shots per game over his last 10 games. We keep talking about how good Protas has been. Dubois isn't a great DFS player. He's had some good games this year, and he's still only 4K. So I think that's perfectly fine. That Dubois, Protas, Wilson line, 13,500 coming in just over 1% ownership. I think this is a spot where that's the line that I would go, considering their filler status. You can play him with your $18,000, $19,000 line. So Wilson, Protas, Dubois is my favorite line in this game. I have no issue with one-offing Leon Draisaitl. That's about the extent of my interest. Like, if you want a one-off, like Podkolzin or Arvidsson, because they're so cheap, you're playing 3-2-1 lineup or something like that. Like, that's fine. I'm not against that. But if I have my choice of playing one Edmonton skater here tonight, it is Leon Draisaitl, and it's not particularly close for me.
Yeah. Florida Panthers with a 3.5 total heading into Anaheim. The Ducks have a 2.4. We don't have confirmation on Florida lines. Now, they have been running Reinhart, Tkachuk, Barkov. They have not been great this season, but they were absolutely electric last season. Also, they're all on the power play, and this is an excellent power play spot. So if you just want to run them out anyway, I think that's fine. Like Verhaeghe is all over the lineup, and he doesn't play a ton anyway. So the guys I would concentrate on the power play would be Reinhart, Tkachuk, Barkov. So if you just want to run them out, I think that's fine. They're in our top stack system as that at 22,900, 23% top two stack, 8% projected ownership. They're $100 more expensive than Hagel, Cirelli, and Kucherov. This is again, really good power play spot. The goalies have been good for Anaheim. I think they said Gibson starting. I haven't seen. They rarely confirm, but
Dostal's been confirmed.
Dostal's been confirmed. I am an idiot once again, but yeah, Dostal's been really good. But if you're going to give these guys a bunch of chances on the power play, I don't mind them. I don't know if I get there if I was spending up. Like I think I would have a little bit more interest in Kucherov, Hagel, Cirelli. But as a pivot in that price range, I don't mind Reinhart, Tkachuk, Barkov. Like Lundell, Verhaeghe against middle six matchups, if they are together, would be interesting at 3.8% at 13,200. Again, you just have to wait and see what the lineup is, and it's a late lock. Unless we get, unless they're skating right now and we get lines, but I don't know. So, I don't mind Verhaeghe, Lundell, but it's just hard to know. On the Duck side, I think the only line I'd have interest in is Vetrano, Terry Strome. They don't get the Barkov matchup. They're 14,200. The issue I'm running into is they're coming in at 7% projected. And they're kind of in that price range with Philly. And I don't know if I want to play a 7% Ducks line against the Panthers, even with Bob struggling. So, they're fine in MME. You need a super cheap filler, I guess McTavish, Gauthier, Fabry, or Zegras, Carlson, Killorn. But, I'm not going to be really going after the Ducks for salary savings, despite them being super cheap.
Yeah, this is a weird game. Because if this is a week ago, I'm probably slamming in Florida. But this game could be a bloodbath. Sam Reinhart, pretty bad knee-on-knee hit on Isaac Lundestrom over the weekend, and that caused a big scene, let's say. Reinhart got 5 minutes, got ejected from the game. And this is the very next game afterwards. This feels like a pretty big revenge spot. I'm pretty sure Ross Johnston isn't going to finish this game with 0 penalty minutes if he's in the lineup. You know what I mean? That's what kind of worries me here is do they just do Harkins and I'm sure the coach wouldn't send them after Reinhart, but do Harkins and Johnston just kind of try to go beat the shit out of him?
Johnston's out, the party said.
Oh, is he? Oh, well, Jansen Harkins then still.
They're going to send someone after him.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is Radko Gudas going to do it? That's what kind of worries me about playing Florida here is that I feel like this game could start and play as normal for 10 minutes, and then one guy goes for a big hit, whether it's on Reinhart or someone else, and then all of a sudden you have 8 ejections. You know what I mean? I do think this, especially with the way Anaheim's rolling, you know what I mean? They've lost, 6 of their last 7 games. This is a team at the bottom of the standings. They're not worried about losing a game or two because guys are going to get suspended or whatever. That's what kind of worries me here. In a nutshell, I do like a top line of Tkachuk, Barkov, and Reinhart here. They could get a lot of power play time depending on what Anaheim decides to do. are they all going to be in the game by the end of the second period? I have serious questions about that. Assuming Hagel, Cirelli, and Kucherov are together, I think I would rather just go with that trio instead. I feel a little bit more safe about them actually being able to finish the game here tonight. So that's probably where I would go instead of playing that Florida one. I do like the idea of like a Lundell Verhaeghe two-man. Like Carter Verhaeghe's been pretty snake bit lately. I mean, lately. He has 2 goals on his last 54 shots. That's like 3.6, 3.7% shooting or something over his last 20 games. Him and Lundell have generally been able to create pretty well offensively this year, even without Tkachuk or Reinhart next to them. So playing with your Rodriguez's or your Samoskevici's or Bachfist right now. Like there is a good sample behind them. So I don't mind that. I do like Florida in general here. It really worries me that some guys are going to get hurt and or ejected from this game here tonight, or just somebody gets like 5 and a 10, right? And all of a sudden they're out for basically an entire period. Like those are the kinds of things I'm worried about in this game. On the Anaheim side, Vetrano, Terry, and Strome are presumably going to go out against Barkov. I don't like that matchup. Zegras and Carlson is an interesting two-man to me. Like that line is pretty cheap. Zegras was playing fine before he got hurt. He's probably, it's his first game back. What's he going to look like? I think there's some cheap Anaheim guys to consider here. If you want to play for Florida, just play Florida. I just have concerns about how this game is actually going to go. I think there are going to be a lot of power plays on both sides, so I'd focus on the power play guys regardless. But I do have concerns about what this game is actually going to look like once the puck drops.
Yeah, and what's going to happen? There's going to be a good, clean hit. It happens in every game. There's a good, clean hit, and they just start just a melee. So, who knows? Let's get to this last game that sucks. Buffalo Sabres with a 2.6 total heading into Vancouver. The Canucks have a 3.3. Vancouver going Pettersson, Besser, DeBrusk, Miller, Garland, Suter. Buffalo going Thompson, Zucker, Kulich, Tuck, Cousins, Peterka, Quinn, Benson, Krebs. Now, JT Miller is checked out. He almost got traded over the weekend. His line's coming in at 12.8% projected. Like, I'm not playing them. They've been atrocious in a small sample. I don't really want to play a Pettersson line either because he looks hurt. I guess a Besser one-off is fine. I don't have a ton of interest in Vancouver here, despite Buffalo being back-to-back on the road at 3.3 total. We'll get to defensemen. I think, honestly, my favorite play is just playing Quinn Hughes. I don't want to stack a JT Miller line at 13%. He could get traded at any moment. Pettersson looks hurt. I don't want to stack that line. I guess you could use Sherwood, Bluger, and Heinen as a filler at 7,700. But that's just like reserved for wildly expensive power play stacking. So, like, really, I don't have a ton of interest in stacking Vancouver at all. Besser one off, Garland one off, Hughes one off, something like that. On the Buffalo side, I just don't have a ton of interest. I guess it would be Cousins, Peterka, Tuck. But, like, I don't have any faith these lines will be together if they fall behind 2-0 or something like that. I know they played yesterday. It was a wild game. They can't defend a nosebleed. So, like, as a late hammer, I'm just kind of fading this game and just hoping it's a low-scoring game.
Yeah. Should also mention, you mentioned Buffalo played yesterday. JJ Peterka was moved up to the top line in Jason Zucker's spot. Zucker was moved down. Regardless if it's Zucker or Peterka on the top line, there's going to be 2 guys on that line that are going to be on the top power play, Thompson plus X. So not a bad idea there. It is also Thatcher Demko starting again. It looks like for Vancouver. He had a win against Edmonton the other night. Edmonton also only had 15 shots on goal, and he still gave up 2 goals against. There has really not been any point this season since he returned where he's looked like, I think he had that one good game when Colorado was in town. Other than that, it's been really, really shaky. That's what gives me some interest in Buffalo here tonight. Is like there's not much ownership coming in on them. I'm not super concerned about the goaltending matchup. Vancouver does take a fair share of penalties. The Buffalo top power play has been a lot better over the last month or so. So, like, if you just want to do like Thompson and Zucker, Thompson and Peterka, Thompson and Quinn, something like that, I think that's perfectly fine here because it's not a bad power play matchup for them. And I do wonder how healthy and ready to go Demko actually is. Other than that, like, I'm not full stacking anything. I think, like, even if you just want to go to Buffalo and just like one off Jack Quinn, 3,600, one off Peterka or Zucker, they're both in the 4K range. One off Thompson. I think those are fine. Like, I do have some interest in Buffalo here tonight just because Vancouver does take a lot of penalties. The Buffalo power play has been better, and Thatcher Demko has just not been good since he came back. On the Vancouver side, like, I guess it would be the Pettersson line I would have interest in. Like, at the very least, Pettersson, DeBrusk, and Besser have scored this year when they played together. 2.9 actual goals per 60 minutes, shooting under 10% as a line, so shooting percentage is just fine. Pettersson will play like 19 minutes, Besser and Garland closer to like 16, 17, or Besser and DeBrusk, sorry, closer to like 16 to 17. I guess it's fine at 16,400. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen looks like he's going to be back for Buffalo, though. Like, they're basically in the same price range as Montreal. I'd rather play Montreal here tonight. Basically in the same price range as those Philly and Edmonton lines, the high-owned lines that we talked about. They're basically in the same price range as the Dallas Robertson line that I mentioned earlier. So, like, there are just other spots I'd rather go in that price range. I guess they're fine, but not a whole lot of interest in stacking Vancouver. I think I agree with you. I would much rather play their defensemen than their forwards.
Yes. Let's talk about those defensemen, shall we? At the top of the board, we have Quinn Hughes, Roman Josi, Dahlin, Bouchard, Hedman, Cedar, Wallman. Like, I'm fine with Quinn Hughes here. They have a 3.3 total. He is 8K. It is expensive, but, you know, it's fine. Like, obviously, Yossi's going to be super high owned, but he's in a great spot. Don't mind Hedman. Don't mind Cedar. I don't mind Wallman. I wish he was on the top power play unit, but he does block a good amount of shots. He does shoot the puck. But in the top range, it's either, you know, Hughes or Josi for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's Josi 1, Hughes 2 for me. They're also 1-2 by Stochastic defense projections. Josi has a much better point per dollar value, but he also has a 30% ownership projection. A lot of people are going to be playing a lot of Nashville Predators here tonight. So Josi and Hughes 1-2. The mid-price range, there's not a ton that I like there. Gustav Forsling is okay. Jackson Lacombe is okay, but it is a tough matchup for him, but he has been putting up peripherals. It's like 1.8 blocks and 2 shots per game. Like, he's been pretty good for peripherals, even when he doesn't get on the score sheet. Jacob Chikrin, I think, makes sense from Washington. Still getting decent ice time, still shooting a fair bit. He has over 3 shots per game in his last 10 games. He's like 2.5 shots per game on the season. So do like Chikrin. Jake Sanderson, he puts up decent peripherals as well. I think I'd rather play Sanderson than Moritz Cedar. I view them as pretty similar players here tonight, and Sanderson's $800 cheaper. So, like, Lacombe, Chikrin, Sanderson, I think in that mid-price range are okay. The cheaper guys, like Darren Radish, we mentioned him on yesterday's show, had another good game. He's got points in 4 straight, 2 goals and 4 assists in those games. Played 23 minutes last night, 18 the night before, 21 before that, 22 before that. With the top power play minutes, he's getting more ice time, and he is producing, so I like Radish. Ekholm's under 4K, and I think he's going to get top power play time, not confirmed, but he did when McDavid was out earlier this season, so Ekholm. Brady Shea's in a great spot. Philip Hronik with Tyler Myers suspended. Philip Hronik might have to get some more ice time. That's why I said I kind of like the Detroit defenseman here tonight. Hronik's 3,100, and I think he's going to have to get more ice time with Myers out. Nate Schmidt running the power play for Florida. If they do get a lot of ice time, or they do get a lot of power plays because Anaheim kind of goes crazy here tonight. Schmidt seems fine. Essa Lindell's in a pretty good spot to block some shots against Carolina. If you need to go down even cheaper, Matt Roy's under 3K. Rasmus Ristolainen's getting well over 20 minutes. He's under 3K, and I'll mention Braden Schneider. He projects very well over at Stochastic. He was over 20 minutes in his last game, and it's not a terrible matchup at home against Ottawa.
Let's talk about them goalies. At the top of the board, in the top range, I don't particularly love it. Like, I don't like spending $8,500 for Saros. He really would need a shutout. It's more of a cash game play. I think I'd be fine with Igor Shesterkin, but like I think I wouldn't really go higher than Jake Ottinger at 7,900. That's the guy that I have circled. I don't mind Merrilainen either at 7,300. Logan Thompson is the cheap guy that is going to be pretty popular here tonight against McDavid, or against the Oilers without McDavid. Like Dostal at 7K is a nice pivot off Thompson because, if they can limit the power play opportunities, he's going to see volume anyway. So really it's between Ottinger, Merrilainen, Thompson, and Dostal for me. I don't have a ton of goalies that I like.
Igor and Ottinger at the top for me. Like, if you want to play an expensive goalie, I'd rather play Saros at home against San Jose, who's playing it back-to-back, than Bobrovsky on the road in Anaheim when that game could turn into an absolute festival. So Shesterkin and Ottinger at the top of the board for me. For the cheaper goalies, for me, it's between Thompson and Dostal. We know how good Thompson's been all season. Edmonton, no McDavid. So not a bad matchup, all things considered. Dostal's been really good. I do worry that Florida gets a ton of power plays here tonight. He's 7K. Thing is Thompson's only 7,100. I think I would probably just try to find the extra $100 to play Thompson, but Thompson and Dostal, I think, are both fine for cheap.
Yep. We will be back for sure Thursday. If the GPPs are anything worthwhile tomorrow, we will let you know. Who you liking for your hat trick pick?
Well, as long as he doesn't get suspended tonight, I'm predicting a big breakout game for Sam Bennett, my hat trick pick.
He could have a Gordie Howe hat trick here tonight for sure. I am going Jason Robertson. I know we don't have a ton of interest in that game, but he has been so hot right now. Hansel. Going Jason Robertson. We could be back tomorrow. We'll put out a tweet. We'll let you know in the Discord, but if not, we will see you on Thursday. Good luck, everybody, tonight, and we'll see you soon. We'll see you in the Discord.
Good luck, everyone.